Good evening. I'm Dr. Charles Prietel, Superintendent of the Altoona Area School District. This evening, we are going to go over our reopening school plan for the 2020-2021 school year. First, I would like to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for all of your efforts this spring in making our COVID-19 response and our virtual learning program a success. We met many challenges with this process and have developed a very strong approach to how we're going to come back to the school in the fall. Everyone, I'm sure, is well aware of the current day challenges we face with COVID-19 and how that's going to impact us moving forward as we move into the new school year. At this time, I want to introduce Assistant Superintendent Mr. Brad Hatch to go over the reopening plan for the AASD School District and the AASD High School. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to our families and students for logging on with us for tonight's webinar to discuss and address questions in our reopening plan. I did want to take just a minute to highlight our pandemic coordinator and the pandemic team that has worked very diligently over the past month on putting together a plan that was board approved and will be submitted to the Pennsylvania Department of Education for approval. Dr. Prietel, our superintendent, myself has been designated as a pandemic coordinator, and working with our director of technology, Bryce Cossiter, Paula Foreman, our community relations director, who runs all of these programs that puts things out on YouTube Live and the webinars and all of our community outreach. Haley Flegel, our federal programs director, Susan Franks, who coordinates our transportation and cafeteria services, all of our building principals, but specifically Lori Mangan, our junior high principal, Andrew Neely, who's with us tonight, our high school principal, Mr. Abbott and Mr. Adams, our elementary principal representatives. Renee Wylick is a high school nurse and is also the department head for our nursing department. Phil Riccio, the school district athletic director. Jill Lane, our junior high school athletic director. Michelle Sanders, who has a yeoman's task as special education director. Doug Endler, our director of building and grounds, and his amazing team that works in all of our buildings. Bill Peffer, our Altoona Area School District Director of Safety and Security, and our head security officer. And we have formulated school subcommittees made up of teachers, support staff, and other stakeholders to look at the needs and the plan moving forward. What we'd like to go over tonight is really kind of focusing on 7 areas. The health and safety monitoring of our students and our staff is our #1 priority, and every decision that we've made and every plan that we've compiled has that at the forefront. Transportation to and from school, what that will look like on district transportation, and how our arrival and dismissal patterns and plans will take place. Our food service, specifically how we will serve breakfast and lunch and what those options will look like. What transitions during the school day. At a secondary level, we do have multiple transitions in a traditional setting where students are moving from class to class, and the challenge of doing that in a safe environment to limit exposure and make sure that we are keeping kids safe while they are in our care. Personal protective equipment and what that will look like specific to face coverings, social distancing, and personal hygiene. And specifically in our classrooms, how will we maintain social distancing while conducting our educational activities, and what scheduling considerations are being made to put those things into action. And then finally, we want to talk to you tonight about a survey, an attention survey that will be issued tomorrow to all of our school district families and students to solicit your intentions after we go over the educational options that are going to be made available to our students. What is your intention for your children in the school district? So for planning purposes, we can move forward with allocating staff and resources in the right places. So for health and safety monitoring, this truly is a joint effort. It's a collaborative effort where the parents and the school district all have designated roles and expectations to help our students maintain safety. We are asking that all parents conduct a health screening of your child on a daily basis prior to school. And I'm sure that this is something that you do anyway, but specifically looking at the following. Any temperature greater than 100.4. So if you have the ability to take your child's temperature, we'd encourage you to do that before school every day. If they are exhibiting a cough, shortness of breath, headache, body ache, fatigue, diarrhea, runny nose and congestion, or loss or altered sense of taste or smell. These are our known symptoms that would point to the possibility of COVID exposure. So those are things that we would like you to monitor prior to the start of the school day. If your child is experiencing any of these symptoms, please keep them home from school and consult with your physician on next steps. Depending on what the nature of the illness is, the nature of the symptomatic, your physician may want to meet with you. They may want to monitor, but we would like you to make those individual health accommodations with your individual children. Please be available and have a plan for child pickup in the event that they do come to school and are spiking a temperature or exhibiting symptoms. We're going to need to be able to get a hold of somebody to be able to come in and get your children. That will eliminate or limit the need to quarantine students while in the school setting. Please update your child's emergency contacts. There'll be information that comes home every year for you to look at what you currently have as your child's medical accommodations, as well as what their emergency contacts are. If we had phone number changes or changes as to who those people are, we are requesting that you update those on an annual basis. What you can expect from us. We will conduct a health screening upon arrival at school for all students. And this will include a contactless temperature screening. All of our teachers, homeroom teachers, classroom teachers will be equipped with a contactless thermometer, and they will be taking temperatures of every student. Any student that has a temperature of 100.4 or greater will be sent to the nurse for contact with parents and for pickup. We are going to be monitoring symptoms, the same symptoms that we're asking you to look at and consider prior to the start of the school day. Our teachers and instructional staff will be trained on how to monitor those throughout the school day and refer to our healthcare professionals if necessary. You can expect regular communication from our nursing staff and from our administrative staff. If a child is symptomatic, we will reach out to you and have direct contact to come up with a plan for your child. We will also be doing daily health screening and symptom monitoring for all staff members. So anyone that is working in the building will also be undergoing those same requirements that we are putting in place for our students. You can be assured that we will maintain a clean and disinfected environment for our students and staff. Obviously, with our high school renovation project completing and the construction project hopefully wrapping up as we move into September, we will have spick and span building, and we will have procedures in place to disinfect and maintain a clean and disinfected environment for all of our students. We will provide sanitizer and education and opportunity for personal hygiene for all of our students. Something we feel very passionately about is that we just can't, put out sanitizer and put up signs that say wash your hands. We need to educate our students as to why that's important and provide them with the opportunity to do so. Providing face coverings for students that are not able to provide their own. We are encouraging families and students to provide their own face covering, as it is a current requirement in the state of Pennsylvania. However, we do recognize that might be a challenge, and we will provide face coverings, disposable face shields, or disposable face coverings and face shields for students that are in need. And working with families and students on individual needs and concerns. We do recognize that is going to happen. There will be individual needs and concerns that we need to work through with families and students, and we assure you that we will take steps necessary to facilitate that process. For transportation and arrival, we will provide appropriate transportation to all eligible students. That will be in the form of a bus, which we will limit to 48 riders, and vans, which we will limit to 5 riders. Face coverings will be required on all school district transportation. Loading and unloading practices will be implemented to limit direct contact and maintain social distancing. This is training that we're currently working on our bus vendor with for our drivers, in addition to directions that we're going to be providing to our students. Assigned seating will be implemented and enforced on all district transportation. Students are required to wear a face covering when entering the building and exiting the building. So traveling to and from transportation, we are requesting that all students and requiring them to have a face covering at that time. Any parent-provided transportation will be coordinated with designated drop-off and pickup locations to maximize social distancing. Upon arrival, students will report directly to their assigned classroom where the health screening will be conducted. Students will be able to acquire a grab-and-go breakfast that they will then take to their assigned classroom. Hallways and locker access will be staggered to ensure social distancing. Movement throughout the buildings will be directionally assigned and monitored by staff. Dismissal will be staggered, maximizing social distancing, and dismissal will be coordinated at the classroom level and adhere to directional expectations. There will be parent pickup locations that will be designated, and bus and van lineups will be coordinated to maximize social distancing and limit any group gatherings. We will be looking at, once the high school students return to brick and mortar and return to the traditional setting, staggered walker dismissal in addition to bus dismissal, because due to construction and the demolition that will be going on 6th Avenue, we will have limited space to load and unload buses. So we'll be using primarily the 7th Avenue side of the building, and we're coordinating with PennDOT, local police, and our own police to make sure that we have safe travels and traverses through 13th, 14th, and 15th Street so that we can get back and forth in between our buses. Breakfast and lunch. I will kind of qualify this to start by saying that we are currently working with the federal food guidelines to look at how and what breakfast and lunch providing will look like while students at the high school are in a virtual setting. And there will be information coming out soon as to what that will look like. Once we are back in a traditional setting, breakfast, we're highly encouraging cashless transactions by utilizing our online payment options and or sending in personal checks directly to our high school offices. Grab and go style breakfast options, where students will take their breakfast selection to their classrooms, will be implemented. Social distancing will be practiced in food and checkout lines, similar to what you would see at a grocery store or any kind of retail store, where there'll be stickers and things on the floor to kind of guide lining up in those areas. Staff will limit contact by entering student information into the transaction system. Typically, we have students punch in their numbers. We want to eliminate as much as possible student contact with those devices. So we'll be using a screen tap and go entry system that our cafeteria staff will be running. Breakfast is available to all students, regardless of their free and reduced lunch status or if they're a pay student. Lunches will be staggered and spaced out to limit the number of students in the cafeteria at any given time. At the high school, as I'm sure if you have a high school student, they will tell you that cafeteria can be a very congested time. And we have identified and designated additional lunching locations throughout the A and B building that we will be utilizing once our students are back in the school. That will assure as much social distancing as we can provide. We will also be scheduling lunches so that less number of students are getting lunch at any given time. Our tables will be spaced out. Lunch time schedules will be staggered to limit the number of students in our food lines, and lunch options may be limited to fewer choices on a daily basis. That being said, students can always bring their own lunch to school if they decide to do so. All feeding areas will be sanitized between lunch sessions, including student tables and all serving areas. Face coverings are not required while eating. During the school day, obviously in a high school environment and being between two buildings, we have a number of transitions that take place. Transitions during the school day will be limited to only necessary movement. When possible, students will remain in a setting and instructors move to their locations. All transitions will be staggered to allow for the minimum number of students to be in the hallways at any given time. Scheduling modifications will allow for increased time in between classes to make this possible. Students will be required to limit locker visits to morning arrival, lunch, and dismissal. All transitions will be monitored to make sure that students are practicing good habits and maintaining social distancing. We do this through hall duty assignments with our staff. Students are encouraged to hand wash and sanitize regularly throughout the school day, especially before and after their lunchtime. Face coverings are required during transitions in the hallways that include arrival, dismissal, and any class change transition. Personal protective equipment. All students and staff are encouraged to wear a face covering at all times. However, all students and staff will be required to wear a face covering, either a face mask and or a face shield, when social distancing cannot be maintained. This will include while on school district provided transportation, upon arrival in the building and until the student is in their classroom, during any transition in the hallway, at dismissal until the student has exited the building and been picked up or has arrived home by walking, in class when social distancing cannot be maintained. This would be when we have small group settings, individuals working in close proximity with other students or their teacher. This will be directed by the individual classroom teacher and monitored by those same teachers. If special circumstances or medical concerns prevent a student from wearing a face covering, those conversations need to take place with school district administration and the appropriate assistant principal at the high school. Face coverings will be available at all schools and on district provided transportation for any student that is not able to provide one of their own. We are encouraging all students to provide their own face covering so that it's something that they are comfortable with and can work with them. If students require a face shield or require further consideration, once again, we're encouraging conversations to take place prior to the start of the school year. Social distancing and personal hygiene is very important. The CDC and Department of Health have emphasized the importance in keeping COVID from spreading. The school district will make every effort to ensure and monitor that social distancing practices that can be implemented and adhered to. All staff will be provided with professional development and be trained on implementing these practices and educating our students as to why this is important for maintaining social distancing. The CDC and Department of Health has a similar stance on personal hygiene and the use of effective practices such as face coverings, frequent hand washing, and use of sanitizer to disinfect hands. All staff will be trained once again on implementing these practices and educating our students on the importance of proper personal hygiene and limiting direct contact with others. Water fountains will not be available to students. However, traditional water fountains have been replaced at the high school, and once we are back in a traditional setting, the water dispensers will be available. The contactless water dispensers will be available to students. Students are permitted to carry a clear water bottle with them throughout the day that they can refill at these filling stations. In the classroom, individual student desks will be utilized in all of our classroom, including the new furniture that was purchased for the B building of the high school. Desks will be spaced and organized to maximize social distancing. Instruction will be delivered face-to-face for all students on a daily basis. When class instruction involves any kind of closer proximity learning, face coverings will be required and appropriate interactions are monitored. Instructional materials will not be shared if at all possible. In the event that we do have equipment or materials that need to be shared, they will be sanitized after each student use. We have looked at scheduling modifications to ensure staggered transitions and limiting unnecessary contact between students and staff. Increased time will be allotted for transitions, and they will be monitored by staff to ensure safety compliance. Tomorrow morning, an intention survey will be sent out to all families on Wednesday, July 22nd, asking you to commit to an attendance model. Please check your email. Now, for our high school, we obviously are opening in a virtual setting. So we want to talk about what the definitions are of the options that will be available to our staff, or to our students. Families will have the option to choose from multiple attendance models. Traditional will mean that students attend their home school on a daily basis. This will not be in effect for the high school for the start of the school year. Option B will be all students will be learning in a virtual environment where they're provided with their education in a predominantly online environment where they are educated by their classroom teachers during the day. Virtual education will look as close to regular school day instruction as possible. We will maintain a schedule where students during the school day will be required to participate in synchronous and asynchronous learning activities on a defined schedule. We are currently looking at what those scheduling options are at the high school. One of the options that we are considering is a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday option where students will synchronously participate in so many periods of instruction each day while completing their asynchronous activities on the opposite days. There will be more information coming out specific as to what that will look like, but all of our students will be issued their Chromebooks prior to the start of the school year, and instruction will be given as to what that learning model looks like. We will be primarily utilizing Google Classroom for all of our teachers as the platform and delivery system for their daily instruction. That will include video-based direct instruction, which we call synchronous learning, with our students. Our junior high school and elementary students will have the option of indicating on their survey that they have a preference for that learning option as well. The other options we have at the high school is the Altoona Cyber Academy. We currently have over 50 students enrolled in our Cyber Academy for the upcoming school year. The Cyber Academy is for students that will be provided with an online curriculum that will be facilitated by Cyber Academy teachers. Students will have a defined curriculum that has flexible instructional hours based on their needs. It will be largely independently facilitated at the home, utilizing school district provided curriculum and teachers. Students will be provided with a laptop with internet access if they choose to provide this option. We are asking that students engage in each of these options for at least one marking period. Currently, our virtual option for the high school will extend at most through September 25th. This will be evaluated on a weekly basis as we move forward with our construction updates at the high school. One of the questions we get in our office quite a bit is parents inquiring about homeschooling. Just wanted to make sure that parents understood that homeschooling means that a family is committing to providing the education to their student with curriculum and goals that they submit annually for approval by the school district. Homeschooling option is that families are taking the responsibility for educating their children. A lot of the times we get calls in conversation where they're confusing homeschooling with either a virtual or a Cyber Academy option. This would require a homeschool certifier to attest to the fidelity and the completion of the goals by the family. High school reopening. Due to COVID-19 related delays by our high school construction and renovation project, it has been decided that for the safety and continuity of our students, the Altoona Area High School will begin the school year in a fully virtual setting. Details will be forthcoming, but beginning August 31st and continuing through the month of September, all high school students will be educated through synchronous and asynchronous virtual instruction, and this will be evaluated on a weekly basis through September 25th. All students will be provided with a Chromebook and instructional materials to actively participate in this learning environment. Specifically for the Altoona Area High School, student orientation, face-to-face student orientation will occur when the building becomes available. Dates and times will be communicated through student and parent email. Meet the Teacher Night has been canceled for the 2021 school year. Chromebook paperwork, which is very important because in order for your child to pick up their new Chromebook, they will have to have this paperwork completed and brought with them during Chromebook distribution. August 18th through the 21st, all paperwork must be turned in to receive a Chromebook. This includes the acceptable use policy and internet agreement. During this week, we will also be holding informational sessions for students and parents. August 24th and 25th will be the dates of Chromebook distribution from the high school field house. August 27th, any child that did not receive a Chromebook during the dates provided will have an opportunity to pick up their device on this day. Any student that is yet to return a device will have to return that device in order to be issued a new device or pay the corresponding fine in order to be issued a new device. August 31st, all fall classes will begin. Your Chromebook distribution dates and times, and these will be mailed to you in the mailing that will come home, will be August 24th, according to the alphabet that you see here, August 25th, according to the alphabet that you see here, and then the makeup date for August 27th. This will be coordinated so that students arrive at their designated time to make sure that we can maximize social distancing and maintain a safe environment for our distribution. That being said, we did have a number of questions that were submitted via the chat line today, but then also through the online availability that we had through distribution. So we're going to go through the questions. If questions come up as we go through these, please feel free to submit them on the webinar, and we will get to them as soon as we get through the rest of these. So if I select cyber for 2 students with IEPs, can I switch back to traditional when it opens? What I would recommend is that you engage in the virtual option during the time frame that we are looking at the construction delays, and that once all students are able to return, if that's what you decide to do, that we would have them back in a traditional environment. However, if you would like to look at our Altoona Cyber Academy as more of a long-term commitment and solution, we can have that discussion with our Cyber Academy principals and look specifically what your individual needs are and how we can accommodate those best possible with your children's IEPs. When can we expect to hear from the CTC? That's a great question. Right now, the CTC is scheduled to open, and our students that are scheduled in the CTC will attend the CTC for their program, whether they're AM or PM. And we will coordinate transportation for those that need transportation to and from the CTC, and the rest of your day would be engaged in virtual education with your core classes. Has transportation been discussed with the CTC? Absolutely. The transportation will be provided by the school district, not by the CTC, and we've already engaged in those conversations with our stakeholders. So closer to, if transportation is needed by the student and the family, we will coordinate those transportation options for the CTC. Will students be able to wear a ball cap shield, and can they wear bandanas for a mask? They're required to wear a face covering. Bandana, if worn as a face covering, is fine. If they want to wear the ball cap shield, if it's the one piece ball cap and the shield attached, that is fine as well. We want students to be as comfortable as possible. So if they are comfortable wearing that face covering, then those are permitted. Questions that came in prior to the webinars. How will change of classes work? It will be staggered and coordinated to make sure that we limit social distancing, and we will have directional signs throughout the building to make sure that that all of our students are not being dismissed at the same time and inhabiting the hallways and other common spaces at the same time. We talked about CTC. What is the plan if children do not return? If we are put into a situation where we're government ordered to not return to school at all, we will utilize our virtual platform and our virtual planned instructional model moving forward. All of our teachers are going to be engaging in professional development as well as training and planning time to be able to really ramp up and up the rigor of our virtual platform and program to make it look as close to brick and mortar, as close to a traditional setting as possible. In fact, there's a lot of ways that you can enhance the educational opportunities through our virtual platform. Will children be required to attend Zoom throughout the day, or will the work need to be completed for the next day like in 1920? This will be teacher directed. There will be a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous activities that are required for students in varying classes. Once again, we are looking at a schedule so that students are not required to do synchronous learning every day, every period. We will kind of space that out and look at a schedule for certain periods to be able to do synchronous learning on certain days, and then also have days for tutorials and direct contact with instructors in those cases. Transportation, obviously, yes, will still be provided to the school district for, when necessary, and when they're eligible. Will families with multiple children go at the same time? So secondary students will access transportation, and their arrival times will be the same, their arrival and dismissal. Secondary and elementary will be different in terms of the start of the school day in elementary, and their bus pickup times will be coordinated through transportation. How will the school deal with positive cases? This is a great question. So we are required, anytime we are notified of a case, to work directly with the Department of Health and the Department of Education on an action plan in terms of notification, possible quarantine, possible closure, and what all that looks like. So our goal would be to notify families within 24 hours of notification of a possible case after coordination with those entities. How will you address different learning abilities? And if children do not move classes, how will this be handled? Obviously, we're going to look at every individual need, whether a student has an IEP, whether they have a 504 plan, whatever it may be. Those accommodations and specially designed instruction and related services will be in place, regardless of whether we are in a virtual setting or we are there in a brick and mortar traditional setting. We will work individually with families, case managers, and our special education department to assure that those accommodations are meeting the needs of individual students. What does high school virtual learning look like since they're not starting on time? So I think we kind of touched base on this a little bit, but it's going to look as close to a normal school day as possible. Students will be required to log in by a certain time, check into a Google Home Room, and they will then move throughout their day with scheduled synchronous and asynchronous activities throughout the school day. And those will be delivered through the Chromebook, through the different apps and the different extensions that are available through Google and other locations to be able to deliver instruction to students. Where will students eat at the high school to reduce numbers? So we are looking at utilizing the field house lobby, our closed and open cafeteria, some of the new spaces that have been renovated that provide lunch capability in our corridors and in our access outside of our library, in addition to utilizing common spaces in our B building to be able to facilitate additional eating spaces. We're also looking at courtyard spaces that are outdoors. And when we have good weather and we're capable of utilizing some of those outdoor spaces, we will utilize those as well to space kids out and limit social distance or practice social distancing. Are we requiring a liability waiver to return to school? The answer to that is no. However, those of you that have been engaging in extracurricular activities such as sports and or band, those are being required for our athletic teams as well as our teams that are engaging in preseason training. How closely do online classes match face-to-face instruction? As close as possible. The scope and sequence as well as the curriculum are the same. So as we kind of move forward, we're hoping to maintain the same scope and sequence and the same pacing for those courses that we would in a traditional setting as for a virtual setting. One of the questions were, are all 3 webinars available to watch on the YouTube channel? And the answer to that is yes. They will be archived and available to watch. And then after rewatching or watching for the first time, if you have questions, we are more than happy to have a conversation with you about whatever your concerns are. What are football games going to look like? And will the band play? These are great questions. And obviously, we are hoping for both. Both our extracurricular activities or our athletic programs to be up and running. The PIAA came out this week with intentions currently to move forward with fall schedules. That being said, we are under outdoor event restrictions, and we're going to have to look at what that looks like. As more detailed descriptions as to what limitations are come down, we will definitely make it public as to what the intention is for both athletic programs and for our music and band performances. Will backpacks be permitted, and how will students have all their materials if they're only allowed their locker 3 times per day? We are encouraging teachers to utilize classroom sets of textbooks so that textbooks do not have to be put in and out of lockers throughout the day. Also, the fact that we are utilizing Google Classroom in nearly all of your classrooms, your device will be the most important piece to have charged and be taken with you from class to class. If there are instructional materials like novels, textbooks, folders, binders, those kind of things, what we're encouraging students to do is to get your AM class binder and or materials at arrival. You would put them back prior to lunch. And then after lunch, you would get your PM materials for your afternoon classes. Backpacks will not be permitted, but however, we will make sure that students are capable of transporting all their materials to and from classes. How will school look for a band student participating in virtual learning? This is a good question. This is something we met actually with Mr. Detweiler today about in terms of what band's going to look like in a virtual environment. You want to comment, Dr. Prieto?
I'll talk with Mr. Detweiler about this a little bit. His intentions are that he is going to be planning his evening practices, etc., to ensure that all the kids could fully participate in band. He's still working on the details, and to get the best answer, you need to talk to Mr. Detweiler, and he'll have that soon at the first band practice, which I believe is in 2 weeks.
Thank you. As a former band director, Dr. Prieto has a little better expertise in that area than I do. If a student that goes to a hotspot state have to quarantine prior to returning? This question has come up, and it's actually been something we've been dealing with our staff members as well. And what the recommendation is from the state of Pennsylvania is that if you travel to one of the designated states, that you do self-quarantine for 14 days. We have been operating as if we are looking at individual circumstances as to where they went, who they were with, and what kind of activities did they engage in when they were on those trips. So we would have those conversations individually with families and or students upon returning from, if it's a designated state such as Delaware or North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. We would like you to contact your building principal, and we will set up a time to coordinate a discussion where we look at, and we have a candid conversation about what was your contact level, what was your exposure level or potential exposure level, and make a joint decision as to what is in the best interest of your child and all other students and staff here at the school district. Can kids bring hand sanitizer or wipes to school? Yes. We will provide hand sanitizer. However, we do encourage students that if they want to carry a little bottle of hand sanitizer with them, that they are permitted to do so. We will provide sanitizing wipes as well as sanitizer in all of our buildings. How will phys ed socially distance? This is a good question. So we will not be requiring students to change for physical education. They will not be utilizing the lockers. Therefore, their choice of dress and footwear in the semester that they have phys ed will be important. We will be modifying activities to make sure that we can social distance, utilizing our personal fitness program that we have with new facilities at our high school, and then also our indoor and outdoor facilities where we can safely social distance and engage in activities where that can also be maintained. If a child would test positive and they have to quarantine, but we are back to school, what will happen? Well, if a child tests positive, there will be specific directions as it pertains to that child based on the Department of Health. And those recommendations will be discussed with the school district. But what I'm thinking you're asking here is if they would happen to test positive while in virtual, will they have to quarantine if that then overlaps with return to school? And that will be an individual circumstance that we work with the recommendations from the Department of Health, your physician, pediatrician, and the school district. Okay, that is all of the questions that came in. I just saw one pop up about how do we register for cyber school. So if you're interested in enrolling in the Altoona Cyber Academy, I'd really like you to think about that decision. prior to contacting our principal, Jason McGinnis, is the principal of the Altoona Cyber Academy, and he would be able to walk you through the enrollment process for that. There is a meeting with parent and student. It's a different device that we would issue, but I want to make sure that the families are comfortable, because you would not be in the schedule that you're currently scheduled into. So you currently have a schedule for your 8-period day, and some of those classes and electives that you would be enrolled in are not available in the Altoona Cyber Academy, but are available in a virtual environment. So I would encourage you to have that conversation with Mr. McGinnis and the guidance counselor to look specifically at what you need to do. What happens if a nurse is ill? Will healthcare personnel be unavailable? We are never in a situation where we do not have a building covered by at least one nurse. In our high school, we have 2 certified school nurses, two RNs, and we have a float nurse who at the high school is an RN, but they are also available to support elementary schools in the event that we would not have a nurse available at one of our elementary schools. So we have a total of 12 nurses that are dedicated and allocated to our buildings, and then we have multiple float nurses that are utilized throughout the district on an as-needed basis. One I'm not swimming is offered. We have that as a scheduled class. So when we return, if you're scheduled into swimming or advanced swimming in the fall, when we return to the high school, you will be working in swimming as well. Yes. So obviously that would require you to change for that class. There's a link on Facebook to the survey and for the Cyber Academy. If you check the Facebook link, and there's also information on our website that will direct you right to the contact information to get enrolled in cyber school. And once again, I'd like you, after the survey comes out tomorrow, really look at what the options are. The virtual opening, we feel very confident, is going to provide students with the closest thing to a traditional education that's going to be very effectively delivered by our staff members and beneficial for students. And a lot of what they do in a virtual environment will translate to the classroom when they get back into a traditional setting. If you would like to pursue the if you would like to pursue the Altoona Cyber Academy, those links then are available. Question about sanitizing. We will be sanitizing desks and chairs upon the exit of students. We have purchased misting disinfectants and machinery that will be utilized in all of our buildings. That's a very quick process. It's a contactless process where there's a mist that is sprayed. It's electrostatic misting process that will be utilized in all of our buildings. Are agency support still allowed in the building? Yes, as long as they are following the same requirements that we're requiring of our staff. So they would have a safety check, they'd have mask requirements, they'd have social distancing requirements. But yes, agency supports are absolutely allowed in our buildings, and we will work with them on making sure that we can coordinate that. How do students wear dance wear for PE and during the day? Mr. Neely, you help me out with that one? They wear dance, like leotards and stuff for dance class? Okay. Well, dancing is going to kind of fall into the same boat as swimming. Because it has specialized outfits that kind of go along with the curriculum, we would make accommodations for those students to be able to change in locker rooms and wear those clothing during those classes. Case by case situation. How will internet work for students that go to different houses? That depends. If it's a virtual option and if a student does not have access to internet, we will work with them on providing a hotspot that would give them internet access that would work with their Chromebook. Based on the feedback that we got from the spring, we had very few families that did not have internet access in some way, shape, or form. But we are prepared to assist families with internet access as we move forward. Will chorus still happen? We'll have to talk to Mrs. Sipes, I'm sorry, about what chorus will look like in a virtual environment. I know that she did conduct chorus and chorus classes and lessons in the spring. So that will have to be something that we work out the details for. But we will get that information from Mrs. Sipes and make sure that any student who's enrolled in the course program is provided that information. Will students that kept their computers need to do paperwork at the beginning of schoolwork? Well, no student should have kept their computer. That's one thing. All Chromebooks and laptops should have been resubmitted. And if they were not, I'd encourage you to contact high school administration to do so in the very near future, because students who we have as having an outstanding device will not be issued a device until we have that device recovered. So if you do have an outstanding device or charger, please make sure that you contact us and make arrangements to get those devices returned. Can online classes be taken the entire year, or do they need to be cyber? Absolutely. The virtual option, even after we return to the traditional setting, will be an option moving forward, which is why I need all of our high school students and high school families to fill out that survey and indicate your intention on that survey. So you know that the start of the school year will be all virtual unless you're enrolled in the Cyber Academy. What we are asking you to fill out and indicate is that once we are able to return to a traditional setting, is your intention to return to the traditional setting, remain in a virtual environment, or enroll in the Cyber Academy? So just to kind of clarify that, to make sure all high school will open virtually, what we're asking you to indicate on the survey is what happens after that time period is up. Will desks and chairs be sanitized? We had already discussed that, and the answer to that is yes. How long will classes actually be with additional time built in? We are looking at 44 to 45 minutes, correct, Mr. Neely? It's right around 40 minutes, and that will allow for the staggered transition times, the additional lunch time. But for the start, once we return to a traditional setting, it will be at about 40 minutes in order to make sure that we're able to sanitize between classes, practice social distancing, and limit our hallway transition traffic. Okay, our last question. Will drama still have rehearsals for the fall play? And my answer to that would be, like other extracurricular and co-curricular activities, as long as we are able to practice social distancing and our green status is not, as long as we're able to be in school and the state is allowing us to return, yes, we will find a way to have drama rehearsed for a fall play. Now, what that looks like specifically, that would be a conversation with Mr. Cossiter. But just like in a regular classroom setting, we would want to be practicing social distancing, wearing masks, and doing all the things that we need to do to comply with state mandates. Virtual classroom will look as close to your regular traditional setting as possible. So just like I am having kind of a class with you right now, this is what you could expect as synchronous learning. So you could expect to have a direct video link or something with your teacher where they were maybe doing direct instruction, they were doing a demonstration, they're conducting a lab, and they're working with you both synchronously and asynchronously in that environment. So similar to what you had in the spring, but during the school day at scheduled times with scheduled teachers for specific periods. It will look as close to traditional school as possible. It will just be delivered in a non-direct contact environment, in a non-face-to-face environment. It will be done virtually. Will there be designated teachers only for virtual classrooms for each subject? To start the school year, whoever your assigned teachers are for your schedule will be your virtual teachers. Moving forward, after we have a return to traditional setting, that may look a little bit differently, depending on the number of students that are opting for that traditional environment or for the virtual environment at the high school. So that being said, we have some details to work out, but to start the school year, yes, your virtual environment will be your 8 assigned teachers on your schedule. If teachers and subs are ill and not available, how will you ensure coverage without doubling up classes? Obviously, we have a substitute provider that we would be working with to provide substitutes in the event that we have any type of long-term or short-term teacher need. In a virtual environment, the teacher will be able to still communicate. Now, if they're just often not available that day, you would utilize a Google Classroom platform to look at what has been posted. Similar to like a teacher, if they're not going to be in school, they have to leave sub plans. Those sub plans would be available on Google Classroom. So you'd be able to access their expectations on Google Classroom as opposed to a substitute handing you a packet or an activity, whatever it may be. It'll be delivered virtually. Okay, I want to thank everyone for their time. A reminder to look for please look for the survey tomorrow in your email. If you're not able to access it on email, please check our social media outlets for a link directly to that survey. We are asking families to only fill in one survey for all of your students and to please only submit once. One last question that I saw was about schedules. You can expect access online to your schedules the week of August 24th. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation and joining us this evening. Once again, if you have any further questions or want to have an individual conversation, don't hesitate to contact the high school or my office. Thank you.